Hi everyone, in the previous lab we learned how to store a single number or a single character in an object. For example, we can store a number in an object X, or we could store a character, for example your name, in an object, again in the same object, but R overrides the value. Okay, often we need to store more than one value in an object. In this case, one option is to use vectors, and we can create a vector using C command or concatenation command. So you can here search for just C, combine values into a vector or list, or you can just here use a question mark and then followed by the name of the command, which is just C. Okay, again the same thing. Previously I stored the name Alex, and then I stored it in an object with the name of name, right, and then stored in the workspace. Now I want to store 3 other names in the same object. Okay, so I want to store Alex, Sarah, Julie, and Mark in the object with the name of name, the same object. So I use C command, and then just remember that this is a character thing, so you have to use quotation, right? So the first one is Alex, and then I use comma to separate the values. Okay, the second one is Sarah, the third one is Julie, and finally Mark. Okay, or Mark. So now we can see that if I just type C, if I have to save it in the variable in an object, right? So I have to save it in the object with name or first name. Doesn't matter. It just shouldn't start with the number, right? So now if I type name here, I can see that 4 values is stored in the object name. Okay, so and if you look at the class of name, class of this object, it is a character, right? Because all of the values are character. Keep in mind that elements in a vector have the same class, so all of them are characters. Okay, so that's the definition of the vector. It's more than one or more than one elements, and all of them have the same class, have the same data type. So now let's say I want to save their age, so the age of the Alex, Sarah, Julie, and Mark, and then save it in an object with the name of age. Okay, for the age the values are just numbers, so we don't need to use quotation. So I use again for the Alex, for example, the age is 22, for Sarah is 18, for Julie is 25, and for Mark is 20. And then I want to save this in an object with the name of age. Okay, and if I look at age, and also if I look at the class of age, it is numeric, right? Now I want to join these 2 vectors because they have the same number of elements, and so the value of the age correspond to the name, right? So I can join or append these 2 vectors. I can join them column wise, or I can join them row wise. If I join them based on column wise, I have to use cbind command, and then the first vector, which was name, and also the second vector, which was age. Okay, and if I press enter button, I can see that. So for each one I have the for each name, each person, I have the age for it. Okay, and they kind of joined based on the column. Okay, column 1, column 2. And I can also join them based on the row wise. I have to use rbind command. So again, the first vector and then the next vector. So let's start with name and age. So that's the result of join based on the rows. So what I'm gonna do is I want to save this in an object with the name of id. I will use it later in this lab. We may do some mathematical operations on a numeric vector. For example, we can add a constant value to all of the elements in a vector. So for example, we had age, right? I can add the value of 5 to all elements. Okay, you can see that the constant value will be added for each element in a vector. Or I can subtract the value of 5 from age, right? Or not just 5, maybe 10. You can see that it's now 15. It's not because I haven't saved the age plus 5. So I'm subtracting 5 from age, not from age plus 5, right? So that's why it is 17, 13, 20, because it's subtracting from the age. Okay. For example, if I add the value of 5 to this, and then I save it again in the object age, now the age is different. Okay. So I can also, for example, for age, I can multiply it by a number or by a real number like 0.3, or I can divide it by a number, right, and so forth. So you can do mathematical operations on a vector, and when you do that, it will be applied for each element on the vector. Let's see an example in public health. BMI, let me create a comment. So BMI is a measure of body size and depends on your weight and your height. So you can calculate BMI based on weight in kilogram and divide it by height in a square height. Okay, so divided by height times height, right? And then you have to use parentheses for this one, okay, because I don't want to first divide the weight by height and then apply the height. So I want to divide weight divided by a square height, right? So that's the definition of BMI, and the height, the unit for height should be in meters. Okay, so this is BMI. If you calculate BMI and the value of BMI was greater than 25, it shows that a person is overweight. Less than 18 shows underweight, and between 18 and 25 is almost normal body size. Let's say we have measured weights of 5 people and we store it in an object weight, okay, and the values are based on the kilogram. Okay, so because it's more than 1%, I have to use C or concatenation command, and because it's a number, I shouldn't use the quotes, right? So the values for the kilogram, maybe they are 60, 80, 120, 50, and 72. Okay, so now if I type weight, I can see that these are the values for 5%, and their corresponding height in meters units are, so let's store it in a variable height, and it's more than 1%, so I have to use C command, and then it's based on the height meters, right? So 1.65 meter, the second one 1.70, the third one 1.83, 1.65, and 1.72. Okay, so that's the corresponding height for each person. So we want to measure their BMI. So again, BMI will be based on what? Based on weight. So now here, if I don't need to type the entire thing, because I already R can automatically gives us a number of commands or number of objects that are in the memory, right? So this one is already saved, so I just can select this one instead of typing the entire name, and then divide it by, so I open the parentheses and height. You can press the tab key in your computer and it will show you all of the commands and also all of the objects that start with H and E, right? So height times, again, height. So that's the definition of BMI. And then if you press enter, you will have BMI for 5%. Okay, so the first one is greater than 25, is highly overweight. The second one is overweight but not too much. The third one is still overweight. The third one is almost underweight, and the last one is almost normal person, normal body size. We can also do some mathematic operations on this. For example, what is the minimum BMI? Okay, so for the minimum, we can use the min command, min. If you use the question mark and then min, so it will show you maximum and minimum, how you can use it in R. Okay, and there are also some examples of it here at the end of in the help menu. So for the min command, I just can type min and then which variable or which object, for the object of BMI. So I want to have the minimum BMI of these people, right? So these are the minimum. So this might be obvious, but sometimes when you have so many records of data, okay, this is just a 5, sometimes you have 100,000, okay, so this can be very helpful. So then I save it in a variable with the name of, in an object with the name of min underscore BMI. You can use arrow or you can use equal sign to store it. And now you have the value min BMI saved in the memory, okay? Or what is the maximum BMI? So I can use max, and then within the parentheses you have to mention the name of the object, which is BMI, and is 35, right? So I can again save this in max underscore BMI, okay? So you can see that it's saved in the environment. So what is the mean or average BMI? I can use mean command and then look at the mean of what? Mean of which object? Mean of BMI, and then save it in an object with the name of mean BMI or mean.bmi. Okay, so now if I look at the value of mean BMI is 27, so which means that the average BMI of these people is 27. So sometimes you need to know the number of the people that are in a group or the number of the elements in a vector. So in this case it's very easy. I just made it very easy because I wanted you to focus on the concept rather than to make it very complex. So to know the lengths of the vector, we use lengths command, okay? Lengths of which vector? BMI vector, and it is 5. I can store it in a variable with the name of count of people, just count. So the count number of the people. So I use the lengths command, and if you want to know more about lengths, you can use a question mark and then lengths. So here it shows that length an object or number of the elements in a vector, okay? So that's a length object, length command. So the next thing is you can create a vector of consecutive numbers ascending or descending, okay, using column operator. So this is for creating consecutive numbers. For example, all of the numbers between 1 and 100. So that's the result. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 until 100. Okay, so that's the very important operator. Or all of the numbers between 1 and 10. Or if I type 10 to 1, it automatically detects that it's in the descending order. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so forth. But how about if I want to have numbers like this in consecutive orders, but the interval between each number is not 1? Okay, for example, I want to have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay, so in this case you have to use a sequence or seq command. And for the sequence command, so you have to first mention the from, to, and by. Okay, for example, I want to have a sequence of the numbers from 10 to 100, but the steps are 3. Okay, 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, and so forth. Or the steps can be real number, 1.3. Okay, so it's a very big sequence of numbers. One of the highly applied operators in R is a square bracket. Okay, so this operator. And this operator means just give me a piece of something. Okay, just give me a subset of data. Okay, this is used for subsetting. So let's say you have an object of 20 numbers or characters. Not 20 is too much. For example, you have you can have for example, you can create a sequence of values from 1 to 10, and by the steps are half. Okay, so this is x. So what we're gonna do is, what I want to do is I want to find the value of the element number 5. Okay, so in that case I have to write the name of the object, and then in front of it I have to use a square bracket, and here I mention the name, the location of the value, which is number 5. Okay, so and if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 3. Okay, another example is I want to have the value of the in this sequence or in this vector, in the value of the location number 5 and also number 9. Okay, so in that case I'm gonna have more than one, so I have to use C command. So I want to have the location number 5 and location number 9, but I want to have a piece of data, right? Just the location of it. So location of what? Location of this vector x. So I use vector x, and then I put this in a square bracket. Okay, so it means that from the square bracket, from the vector x, just select the location number 5 and location number 9, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and the result is 3 and 5. Or you can have more than 2 values. Okay, it's not necessarily 2 values. So you want to have location number 5, number 9, and location number 12. Okay, so how about you want to have the values for the location number 10 to 15? So I use, again, it's more than 1, so I can use C, or instead of using C I can, so it's because it's 10 to 15, I can use 10 to 15, right? and then I want to have I want to know the location of the value. So I use x, and then in a square bracket I want to have a subset of this x that are in the location 10 to 15. Okay, so x was this value 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. I want to have 10, which is 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, and 8. And how about if I want to have all values but not a position, not a, for example, position number 9. Okay, so if I want to select position number 9, so I use the name of the vector and then the number of the position, right? The position location 9. But if I don't want, I want to select all of them but this value, I use negative value. Okay, so it removes the position number 9. So in our BMI example, this is our BMI values. So we want to know what is the BMI of the third person. Okay, so I type BMI of which person? Third person. I want to select the BMI of all percent except for third person. Okay, so I type BMI, and then because I'm going to subset the data and I want to remove or exclude the person number 3, so which is I think 35 has to be excluded, right? So all but this value. Or I want to have the BMI of the first person and person number 4. So it's more than 1%, so I have to use C command. So C of the person number 1 and person number 4, and I want to select the BMI for it, and this is for subsetting the data. BMI for person number 1 and 2 3 4. Okay, and how about if I want to have the BMI of the person number 2 to 4? So 2 to 4, and then I want to select BMI of these people, right, which is this one, and this one, 27, 35, and 18. That's for subsetting, which is super important in our programming language. And finally, matrix. Matrix is a two-dimensional data structure and is arranged in rows and columns. You can create a matrix in R using matrix command. So let me type. So if you want to create a matrix, you have to use matrix command. Or if you look at the matrix in the help, you can see some information how you can create a matrix. Okay, so I want to create a matrix 3 by 4. The dimension of the matrix is 3 rows and 4 columns, and the values are between 1 to 12. Okay, so I use matrix command, and then so the values start from 1 to 12, and number of rows, n row equals to 3 rows, and n col number of columns is 4. Okay, so it creates a matrix 1 2 3 4 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So if you have 3 rows and 4 columns. Okay, so that's the structure of the matrix. So you should have your data, number of rows, and number of columns. We can see that the values of the matrix filled in column wise, right? So if I want to fill them row wise, I have to make the by row true. Okay, so the default value is false. So here I can add another argument that by row should be true. Now we can see that the values are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. That's how we can create a matrix. So let's save this matrix in an object. Again, you can save everything in an object with the name of mat. So we can see that's our matrix. Check the class of an object. You can use class and then the name of object, which is mat, and then you can see that the class of object is matrix. And if you want to know the number of rows, number of columns, so in this case it's very easy, but sometimes you have a very big data set. So you should, if you want to know the dimension of a matrix, you have to use dim of our matrix, which is mat. So we use dim command, dim, and here I type the name of our matrix, which is 3 by 4. We have 3 rows and 4 columns. Let's see an example. If you remember, we saved the information of 4 people in an object and also the age in an object ID. It was like this. It was a matrix because it's more than, it's arranged in rows and columns. So it has 4 rows and 2 columns. So if I look at the dimension of ID, it is 4 rows and 2 columns. And also you can add another row, add another column. For example, you have measured the systolic blood pressure for these people, and the values are so because it's more than a 1, I use C, right? The value of the systolic the values of the systolic blood pressure that I measured are 160, 150, 170, and 159. Okay, for 4 people. And then I want to join this value, join this systolic blood pressure to these people. Okay, so I want to join them based on the column. So it's C bind, is column bind, and I want to join ID to systolic blood pressure. Okay, so that's the result. I have 4 rows and 3 columns, and then I can save this, the result of bind or join in an object with the name of SBP underscore patients, or patients information, patients underscore info. Okay, now if I look at patients information, that's the info, and I can look at the class of it. It's definitely a matrix, right? So, and if I want to look at the dimension of this matrix, I just want to repeat this important information about the matrix or vector for you. So dimension of the patient's info, it's 4 rows and 3 columns. And finally, subsetting for a matrix, or extracting an element. If you remember, we just said that for extracting a element from a vector, one element or more than one element, we should use the square bracket. Again, for the matrix, we also use a square bracket. So the extracting elements for a vector, for a matrix, is very similar to the extracting values for a matrix. Okay, for example, let me make this larger and then zoom out a little bit. Okay, so this is our matrix ID. Okay, so I want to select the, not the ID, it was patient info, right? The final thing, patient info. So I want to extract the first row and the second column. Okay, first row and second column, which is 22, right? So first row and second column. So row number 1 and column number 2 of what? Of this object, which is patient's info. Okay, it returns 22. Next, I want to extract only the first row and all column. So first row, here the difference between the matrix and vector is that we have comma. So in the square bracket we have comma, which means that it's for row and column. Okay, so that's the difference between vector and matrix. So I want to select the first row and all columns. So if you want to select everything for the for a column or for a row, you have to just leave it blank. Okay, so this means that row number 1 and the entire columns, okay, of the which matrix, patients, info. Okay, for example, I want to select the entire column 2. Okay, so entire column 2 means that you have to leave the row blank and then select the entire column 2, which is 22, 18, 25, 20. Okay, and finally I want to extract number 3 and row number 4 and the entire columns. Okay, row number 3 and 4, it's more than one value, right, for the rows, so we have to use C. So row number 3 and row number 4. And so that was for the rows, right? How about the column? The entire column. So I leave it blank. Of which matrix? Of this matrix, patients, info. So I want to select row number 3 and row number 4, right? So you can see that I can select row number 3 and row number 4. Make sure to practice and understand these important concepts.